intricately our bodies are made by the Lord and how all those things play such a part in how our body functions. And so, and I'm not a registered dietitian, but certainly I've been a RN for about 47 years. And so I know how important nutrition is in the way our body functions. And then in looking at how it affects us during the time of addiction, and then consequently the effects of it and when a person's trying to go into the process of recovery. And so, and that role that nutrition plays in the relapse prevention. And so, looking at probably about 85% of people that are in recovery, their bodies are malnourished. And so that really affects how they go forward in looking at, what do I need to do to make my body healthier? And so there's some different points I'd like to bring out tonight and the body mind connection and sobriety. And so there's 4 different points that I'm looking at tonight. Rebuilding the brain chemistry or the neurotransmitters repair, stabilizing blood sugar and stopping the mood swings, hunger cues versus substance craving. And the 4th one is reducing the brain inflammation. There's also another part that I want to bring out at the 3 R's and the action plan for daily recovery. So I'll start with the first one of rebuilding the brain chemistry and the neurotransmitter repair. So there's a lot of science and research, and our brains require amino acids to function and to build our neurotransmitters, like the dopamine that's for motivation, the serotonin for happiness and sleep, and substances deplete these baseline building blocks. So our amino acids are our building blocks. The fix is that consuming lean proteins like poultry, fish, eggs, tofu supplies those necessary amino acids to safely rebuild mood regulating the brain. And so those are really important things that we have to be thinking about. Stabilizing our blood sugar. So when we're not eating regularly, like we're not eating 3 meals a day and eating them like maybe 3 to 4 hours apart, there can be such mood swings because our blood sugar is fluctuating. And so there's a real science between that of a diet heavy in processed sugar or that causes rapid spikes and then really quick crashes. So a blood sugar crash can cause you to be irritable and anxious and shaky and sweaty. So the brain can misinterpret this, and these symptoms can also be misinterpreted that there's a physical and psychological craving for the substance. So when a person isn't eating correctly and they're not doing things like they should to help nourish their body, then our bodies can think that we're craving the substance that we used before. But there's a real fix for that. And the fix is taking in complex carbohydrates, things like oats and brown rice and beans and sweet potatoes. And these digest slowly in the body, and they provide a flat, steady stream of energy to the brain and prevent that mood swing, those drops in the blood sugar. So those are really important things in stabilizing our blood sugar and stopping those mood swings. So then hunger cues versus substance craving, the third thing that I want to bring out tonight. There's a science behind that, everything that we're talking about tonight, and just how intricately that can affect us. So active addiction often suppresses our hunger and our appetite. And so people don't feel hungry and they forget about hunger. And so our brains need to be reprogrammed. In early recovery, when the body screams for food, the brain frequently misinterprets this, that empty stomach feeling as a craving for a drug or a drink. And so it's unbelievable how that all works. But the fix is that if we implement strict, regular meal times, I mean, certainly you're going to have to where aren't on this strict schedule, but it's good to have a plan and to try to stick to it. And then having those 3 meals a day that are about 3 to 4 hours apart, and then having a couple of healthy snacks. So eating on a schedule is so very important. It prevents the body from entering that starvation state and effectively eliminates those false cravings. So that really makes a big difference. the fourth topic that I wanted to bring out is reducing brain inflammation. And the science behind this is chronic substance abuse can cause cellular inflammation throughout the nervous system, which will affect your memory and your learning capacity. And the fix for this is healthy fats, the omega-3 acids found in like things like nuts and fish and flaxseed. And studies show that adding omega-3 to our regular diet improves our thinking ability and significantly decreases the scores that have dropped when a person's using. One of the things that I like to bring out is the 3 R's, the action plan for daily recovery. And one of the things that out of the 3 R's is to make sure that you're hydrating, you're rehydrating. And oftentimes when people are in early recovery or even when they're farther along, having that amount of water that you should take in daily, and it's about 2 to 3 liters, which seems like a lot, but and limiting your caffeine because your caffeine is going to make it different than taking in water. This flushes our bodies out at the cellular level and gets rid of toxins and prevents, oftentimes people get what they call a withdrawal headache, and then refueling your body, um, taking in the complex carbohydrates and the lean proteins. So eating that every 3 to 4 hours and keeping your blood sugar entirely stable to block that physical anxiety spike that happens. And then looking at how we can repair our body. So repairing our body, taking in the quality high quality B complex and C supplements. And this is helping to restore the neurological pathways that heal the damaged organ tissue. So not only in your brain, but your entire body when you've been in a situation with addiction, that there's so many things that get affected by that chronic use or that long-term use. And the one thing that in looking at things and looking at how we have to think about, there's a acronym called HALT, and it's hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. So a person can look at that and oftentimes hunger is misidentified by a brain in recovery. And so that's a really common thing. And looking at, rebuilding those chemicals with food, the brain chemicals that our body so desperately needs that affect the neurotransmitters in our brain, like the dopamine and the serotonin and the endorphins. And so all of those things are affected along with, our sugar and caffeine roller coaster. So we have to think about the complex carbohydrates versus those simple carbohydrates, which are processed and sugary foods. And then the one thing too I want to bring out is the gut health and your mental health, and how often our serotonin um, receptors are located in our gut. And so substance use can severely damage the stomach lining and affect and alter it. And so how things are absorbed and taken in. So there's so much repair that has to happen. And that nutritional intake is going to make a big difference in the recovery process and then being able to stay in a path that's healthy and for the well-being of the person. So in closing, looking at how important, let's see, I have my last little thing that I wanted to say here. How important the nutrition is, and it acts as a frontline defense in against our relapse by repairing the damage and stabilizing the body. So I'm not sure if you have any questions, Daryl, for us, or if there's anybody else on the line, but we sure would love to speak to you further on that and expand on this. Again, Mary and I were talking about having maybe a second part of this series because there's so much to cover and to go into more depth into this, but how important this piece of recovery is, along with a lot of other things that people use as a tool to stay in a good, healthy path. So
That's
thank you so
excellent,
much.
Robin. Jackie, do you have anything you want to just weave in right here before we go to formal questions?
Yeah, Robin, that's such good information. I wanted you to repeat that. Help, what was that again? Hunger, what was the other?
Oh, it's called Halt, and it's hunger. Um, oh, let me see in my notes here. Angry, lonely, or tired. And there's a food mood connection, and it's really a thing that people, if they can look at that and think about that, because um, when we skip meals and your blood sugar drops, you become hypoglycemic, and this triggers anxiety and panic and inability to cope. And then our brains um, forget what hunger feels like when we've used chemicals, and it interprets it as a direct craving for alcohol or drugs. And so that it mistakes that. And then the fix is to eat regular meals, balanced snacks, and making sure that, and not that we aren't going to have goodies from time to time. And it's a process, and we have to be kind and gentle to ourselves. But oftentimes when people go into treatment centers, they have all these simple um, carbohydrates that they feed them, and people stock up on that, and that's kind of like it's replacing what they're trying to get away from with another thing, and the food becomes the addiction at that
Yeah.
point for some people. So trying to find that proper balance and really taking good care of ourselves, and our bodies are temples, and we need to remember that they're so intricately made by our Lord and Savior. But it's so important to remember that we only get one body, and how important it is to remember that.
So many of us who've worked with addiction, and my field is really broad because for those of you who are listening, I work with ADD, ADHD, and autism, mental, emotional, addictive disorders, as well as physical health. Quite often we're dealing with obesity. And when a
Mm.
person stops using and they begin to substitute food, they gain weight. And so often that's one of the driving factors to reuse again, use substances because they don't want to be fat. So the
Mhm.
information you're giving, Robin, is so true. They've got to, what I do, what I recommend is that first we drop oxidative stress. Um, and what that is the damaging free radicals in their body. You're going to accumulate some of these through your natural aging process, your natural metabolism. But adding substance abuse or adding just plain old prescription meds drives these oxidative stress markers so high. And when you go to the National Medical Library and you look for oxidative stress dash addiction, you're going to find that the oxidative stress was there first. That was a big wake up call for me, having worked with people with addiction for goodness 62 years, was that the oxidative stress preceded the addiction. Your body was already in a mess. And that's why that first cigarette, that first drink, whatever it was, made your body feel better. And then the body just kept asking and asking and asking. So I like to drop the oxidative stress, ask the person, give us, if you do you want to be cured? Do you want to be healed? Then you got to have a new pathway. You got to have a new journey. Will you give us the time to help you? Your body didn't get in this overnight. Give us the time to help you get every cell in your body renewed. And that's not going to happen in the vacuum without good nutrition. And the body's going to be begging for carbs, begging for pastries, begging for sugar, cokes, whatever, junk food. But the consistency of, I really do want to get well. So let's get rid of the bad guys. Let's lower the bad guys and then do exactly what Robin's talking about, which is have healthy protein packed meals so that you don't get hungry. With the low blood sugar, it's exactly as Robin says, people can get the hangries, but it's
Mm.
also true with high blood sugar. You can go into a high blood sugar rage. And many times, people who are living with diabetics When that blood sugar gets really high, that's when they go into a rage. And you're like, what did I do to set him off? It's the blood sugar. So therefore, in dealing with just a new life and a better life, we have to look at what Mary and Robin were talking about at the very beginning. God has created us so that our cells will renew and that we can have better health, but we're going to have to follow the rules of health. So yeah, Mary, that's about the only thing I would want to add.
That's great. I'm going to turn off the recording. All right.